They told me to bow, not to speak, not to breathe too loud in the presence of the Thalari princess, because one wrong move might bring planetary tension to a boiling point, and because her kind was not known for mercy, but I had never been good at keeping my mouth shut. So when she walked in with those glowing emerald eyes and a presence that bent the air, I did the one thing a soldier from Earth should never do in a formal alien court. I smiled and said cute, and every Thalari guard in the room tensed like I had declared war, while her eyes widened and color rose across her silver skin, and for a moment I thought maybe, just maybe, I had made a connection, until her right arm moved like thunder and her fist came faster than light, and all I remember is flying backward like a ragdoll thrown by a storm, until I hit a wall and slid down onto my back, blinking up at a golden ceiling, wondering what the hell just happened. I woke up on a medical slab with humming machinery around me and a stern old Thalari doctor muttering something about bone regeneration and idiocy. And when I asked what happened, he stared at me like I had asked where the sun was, and said, "You insulted royalty and you lived, which means you are either extremely lucky or already part of some galactic prophecy you do not understand." And I told him I only said she was cute, and he blinked slow and deep, like he was calculating how long it would take for that stupidity to destroy a moon, then left without answering. And hours later, or maybe days, I could not tell, she came in with her shoulders held high and eyes unreadable, and sat beside my slab without speaking. Until finally, she said softly, "Your word. It means something small." Yes, and I realized too late that in her culture cuteness was not admiration, it was condescension and belittling, and that my human tongue had tossed out something sacred and terrible in one syllable. And when I tried to explain, she raised her hand to stop me and said, "I know you meant no harm, but I will not be seen as small even by you." Once my body stopped aching and I could stand without support, I was summoned back to the court, not for judgment, they said, but for clarification. Though every Thalari official watching seemed ready to vaporize me with a blink, and the princess stood at the center, her eyes locked on mine, and said, "Human, explain what you meant with your word." And I told them all about Earth, and how the word cute held layers upon layers of meaning, how it could mean charming, or admirable, or warm, and how it was the first word that escaped my lips when I saw someone whose power did not hide their gentleness, and whose presence struck me dumb. And for a long silence no one spoke until the princess slowly stepped forward, her voice calm but hard, and said, "Then, you will show me this Earth way. You will teach me how one can be strong and small at once, how one can command armies and still be soft to those who kneel." And though I did not fully understand her request, I nodded, because anything was better than being punched into a wall again, and also because something in her gaze had changed. Teaching a Thalari princess how to be human was like juggling fire on a tightrope in space, because every lesson was a potential insult, and every joke a diplomatic incident waiting to happen. But somehow, over time, she began to laugh, even if the laughter sounded more like a challenge, and she began to ask questions about Earth, about what it meant to play, what it meant to dance. And one day, she asked me why humans cry, and I told her that sometimes when you care too much, or when you are overwhelmed, the soul leaks a little. And she did not understand at first, until she saw two Thalari children fight over a toy, and one broke down in tears. And she watched that moment like it was the secret to the universe. And then she turned to me and said quietly, "Think I understand now?" And then walked away without another word. And it was in that moment that I realized this was no longer about diplomacy or recovery, but about change. That something old in her was shifting, and something new in me was growing too. A festival approached, one that honored strength and survival, and as part of her royal duties, the princess had to fight publicly to demonstrate her capability. And when she asked me to stand with her as her second, I nearly choked, because standing beside her in an arena meant being seen as her equal, or at least her chosen, and though I had seen what her fists could do, I could not say no, and when the arena gates opened, the crowd roared like living thunder, and she stepped out in her battle armor, a vision of fury and grace, and I followed in borrowed gear, feeling like a child among titans. And the duel was brutal. The opponent a rival clan heir who fought like death itself, and for a moment she faltered, blood on her lip, resolve in her eyes, and I stepped between them, not to block, not to fight, but to remind her with one look that she was not alone. And she unleashed something ancient and glorious that ended the battle in one strike, and afterward, with the crowd in stunned silence, she turned to me and said softly, "Your word, cute, it does not insult me anymore, because now I know what it means and I will carry it like a badge." They say history turns on the smallest hinges, and I believe that because one accidental word turned into a lesson, turned into a partnership. And now, when she walks with a little tilt of the head, like she is always listening for laughter, and when she speaks it is with fewer blades in her tone, and more patience in her breath, and sometimes, when no one is watching, she smiles and says the word back to me like she's testing its weight. And when the council offered me a post as ambassador to Thalari Prime, she was the one who insisted, and when I asked why, she said, "Because you see what others do not, and you speak what others fear, and you made me fly in a different way than before." And though her punch still haunts my ribs, and the memory of that impact wakes me some nights, I would take that flight again 100 times if it meant hearing her laugh once more. And now, when I call her cute, she only raises one brow and says, "Careful, human, or ill make you fly again." And I smile because she means it, but not like before.